Thank you so much, Tuuli. Indeed, my name is Elias Willberg, and I joined the group in 2014, actually, for the first time for my bachelor thesis, and then more permanently in 2017, have done my old studies and been around for around 10 years now. So it's really my honor to begin these sessions, these presentations with talking about accessibility. Because as you heard from Tuuli's presentation, it's a research topic that has been there in a core part of our research for all these years. And what do we actually mean by accessibility? Because it's a bit difficult concept to understand, it has many meanings, let's say that this way. There's many definitions as well, but the one that has resonated probably the most for us is the oldie from 59, the potential of opportunities for interaction. Because this definition captures the very simple idea that we just heard, that we need accessibility in our everyday life. And when we go to work, when we go to school, when we go to grocery store, when we go to daycare, we need to think about how to get there. And that's the reason why accessibility has become so important for planning. It has also connected with many, many positive social outcomes, social inclusion, innovation, health and well-being, but also lower environmental harm. So that's why in research and planning both, accessibility has, not only in our research, but overall has become really, really popular study topic. But actually measuring it, there's really many dimensions. And if I have to summarize our 15 years of accessibility research into one sentence, it would be something like figuring out how we should measure it. Because accessibility, first of all, is multimodal. It's one thing to measure how we get somewhere by car than how we get somewhere by public transportation. And this was probably the first major advancement in research, even though it's a really common sense idea that if we want to compare different travel modes, we have to make them comparable. But this door-to-door approach, which was already in 2013 developed by Marianne, Tuuli and others, so it makes this innovation that actually we should count from door to door the travel times for different travel modes to be able to compare them. And actually this idea has been the bedrock of basically all of our accessibility analysis. So anyone who has been following our work, being a member, being a student, being an alumni, you have probably seen these maps many times. From the Helsinki region, where we have measured travel times between different areas, between different travel modes, between different years, between different population groups, but all these analyses actually have become possible by making the travel times comparable. So recognizing that accessibility is multimodal thing. But of course there's really many other dimensions, and I'm just briefly touching here some which have been most important for our research. So it's multimodal, but also it's multitemporal, which means that if we want to reach, let's say, a grocery store, or if we actually even go to work, so we have some office hours, there are some opening hours, so it changes all the time, the accessibility, it's not static. Similarly, the transportation network, it changes all the time. Public transportation has its schedules, car travel might be delayed by congestion, so even transportation network is all the time changing. And similarly people, the common assumption has been that people are at home and that's where we measure. But actually we here are in this seminar room today, and usually we are not, or many of us are not home 24 hours a day. So actually, we should also take this into account, where people are at different times of the day. And also, during the years, we have made really many analyses figuring out this, how this dynamism changes accessibility. This is an example from the work of Claudia, where in Helsinki region we measured how accessibility changes between different hours of the day when all these three components are made dynamic. When we have the dynamic transportation network, when we have the opening hours, and when we have the dynamic population included. But there's more. So more recently, a couple of years ago, we had a project called Urban Age, which was about accessibility of older population in urban setting. And with that project, we started to think more about that actually accessibility also varies between people. And especially when we measure walking, cycling, so these differences between people become emphasized. So it's one thing to be someone with physical restrictions in mobility than to be a healthy adult in good conditions traveling there around. But actually, in most research and in most planning, the healthy, fit young adult is usually what we call the average person. And we actually measured this, and this was one of the most fun studies to do in this, like in my time. So with Chris there, we went outside, we measured people's walking speeds, and then we integrated these thoughts into, or these measurements into accessibility model to see who can actually reach an essential service, in this case a grocery store, in 15 minutes by walking. So the outcome was that actually these different sensitivities make a large difference. So if we just measure accessibility for an average person in good conditions at the time when all the shops are open, so it looks really good. But when we integrate these sensitivities and we have a model where we have an older person, or we assume an older person in icy winter conditions in the early morning, so actually the difference is pretty large, which just tells us that actually it's pretty important to be aware of what we assume when calculating accessibility. Well, the final thing, which is more recent development in our research, is something we call donut accessibility. So the most common assumption, which at least I have seen very little questioned, is that more accessibility equals better. And of course, given how important it is for all kinds of life outcomes, so to a large extent that is true, that more accessibility is usually better for people. But at the same time, we all know that we live in a limited planet, and we should also ask that can accessibility be excessive? And we should recognize that to provide accessibility is actually about meeting the needs of the people, but at the same time not going beyond the capacity of the planet. And actually this is, even if this is also a common sense idea, so it's really rarely seen in research or planning or anywhere where accessibility is discussed. But to conclude, I couldn't have a presentation on accessibility research in DGL in these 15 years without mentioning the data and tools. So as you heard, the opening of data has been the enabler of this research. But at the same time, we have done a lot of work in contributing back, and probably the most well-known data set, Helsinki region travel time metrics, which has travel times and distances for 4 travel modes in the Helsinki metropolitan area, and that has been now published for over 10 years in 13, 15, 18, and 23. And that's available for download all these years. But this data set wouldn't have been possible without the development of open tools. So basically, for every iteration of the matrix, there has been a new tool that has been developed to make these multimodal calculations at urban scale. Because at the same time, in these 15 years, the data possibilities, computational possibilities, the development of tools has been so rapid, so it has always, we have concluded that actually there should be a better tool, or we should apply this tool for the newest matrix. And it's also that we have been able to integrate these different dimensions that I presented to the travel time matrix to the later iteration. So just want to appreciate the tremendous work that many in our group have been done, also developing open tools which have enabled then the accessibility data sets. With this, of course, I also want to say thank you for all the funders that have enabled this work. There has been really many people involved in our accessibility research or that line of research throughout the years. I hope I didn't forget anyone. And well, I just want to say that I hope the next 15 years will be as fruitful for our accessibility research than the last 15 have been. So thank you.